second pew. You can wait for one. A man walked into a store, and Jesus was standing behind the counter. He recognized the Lord. He said, "Lord, what do you got?" And Jesus said, "What do you want?" So the man thought for a moment. "Food for all, good health for children, decent housing for everyone, and an end to abortion, violence, and war." And Jesus said, "Everything you need I have. But I don't think you're going to want what I have. You see, I don't sell in this store finished products. All I do is I sell seeds. You need to buy the seeds, plant the seeds, and water them every day." And the once happy man left sad because he didn't want to buy the seeds, didn't want to plant the seeds, certainly didn't want to water them every day. Who talks like this? I mean, in your ordinary lives, I'm not talking about coming to church or going on a retreat or reading a spiritual book. Where do you hear stories like this or hear parables? Ezekiel, for crying out loud, is talking about trees. Speak normal words. We don't hear this stuff in ordinary life. But make no mistake about it, Ezekiel and our Lord are not talking about ordinary life. They're talking about extraordinary life. They're not discussing ordinary things, but extraordinary things. They're talking about stuff that our eyes have not yet seen and our ears have not yet heard, what our mind has barely even tried to penetrate. They're trying to open up a whole new world. And Jesus taught them in parables. It's through stories like this that the door is opened. And we are invited to come through. Will we? That's the invitation. You see, the stuff of parables, the stuff of prophets are the meat. They're the stuff of our meditation. We don't just hear them and swallow them or taste them and swallow them, but rather we're called to savor them, to listen attentively. The first step of contemplation. To read intently. To meditate upon it. To chew on it. To try to understand. To pull it apart and place ourselves in the midst of the mystery. And then when we have tasted and savored every last flavor, to pray, to ask God to take us to the next step, to ask the Lord to give us the good that we have been meditating on, or help us to avoid the evil that is disclosed, and to become like Martha's sister Mary, to sit at the feet of the Lord. For once we have bought the seeds and planted the seeds and watered the seed, the Lord does the rest. And so like Mary, we sit at the feet of the Lord as he opens up the mystery to us. Our beloved opens up a whole new world. What's really real. Why we're doing the things that we are doing. What it's all about. And isn't that where we want to be? Isn't that why we are here? I think of the RCIA process. There are some things that you teach someone that's coming into the church, but they'll never quite understand it until they've experienced for themselves those Easter mysteries, until they've tasted for themselves the inbreaking of the kingdom in their lives. And so the RCIA process has a period called the period of mystagogia, and it takes place after Easter when we break apart the mysteries. You see, Jesus spoke to the people in parables, but he could talk to his disciples and explain everything because they already had their eyes open to the inbreaking of the kingdom. They recognized the Messiah in their midst. Do we? It's like me trying to share with Father Bender what the priesthood was like. I mean, he's lived with priests. He's lived here for a while. He has no idea, no clue as what's coming. I can remember, I said the same thing after my first year as your pastor, but I can remember the first year of my priesthood when it was all said and done, when it was all over, looking back and saying to myself, that was the best year of my life. And I never want to live through that again. It was impossible. It was hard. The parable I think of, an analogy and a story. I think of a teacher in their first year of teaching. Everything is new. They had no idea what it feels like to stand in front of a class all day long. Their feet, they didn't realize they were flat-footed. It's painful. Staying up late at night doing lesson plans and correcting papers. They have no social life. They had no idea what they were getting into. You wonder why they go on to their second year. Because it's wonderful. Hard, yes, but wonderful. Wonderful. I love my life as a priest. And it's exhausting. The same thing's true for our married couples in our midst. A couple preparing for marriage has no idea that marriage is a sharing in the life of Christ. It is a sharing in the passion of Christ. It is a dying to self. It is a crucifixion. Try to tell that to a couple preparing for marriage. Yeah, I'm sure it's hard. But I'm tough. I can do this. You don't really die, do you? There's no bleeding involved. You're not beaten up. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You are no longer. You're no longer the master of your life. You have died to yourselves. Your life is your family. And you bleed for your family. There are moments in marriage where it's as if you're hanging upon the cross and you can't even catch your next breath. A carrying of a cross. You can't imagine how you're going to get up after you've fallen. You have no strength left within you, and yet you go on because you love him, because you love her, because you love your family. You die over and over. And it is a sharing in the very life of Christ. If someone knew this before getting married, you wonder if they would ever make that first step. And yet those who live their vows know that there's nothing better. That the joys far outweigh the sorrows. That being conformed to Christ, sharing in his passion, laying down your life for someone gives meaning to everything. That after dying to yourself and living for the other for 25, 30, 40, 45, 50, 60, 65 years, and you still ache when they hurt. You become one flesh with them. And when they die, you die. For a part of you is ripped out. Marriage is the sharing in the life of Christ. It is a sacrament. It is a mystery. It reveals what we are called to live in communion with one another and with God. In the sacrament of marriage, you end up forgiving the unforgivable. You end up sacrificing what the world tells you you should not sacrifice. Our married couples are living parables. They are mysteries. They are a paradox to what the world stands for. They make the really real visible in our midst. And so we celebrate them. And we ask God's blessing upon them. For they have learned to trust in the Lord, that in good times and in bad, in sickness and in health, all the days of their life, that they are capable of keeping these vows. Because if God is for us, who can be against us? For in God we are triumphant. He is flesh in our midst. And so at this time I would invite our married couples to please stand if you have